So tonight I'll share with you our team's design process, focusing on how we effectively enhance and delve deeper into our designs. And through this session, I hope that you can learn something out of it, and maybe we can improve our design and refine our approach to our different projects. So the title of my talk is It All Started with a Line, a creative process under pressure. Why line? Because I always start with a line in your sketch. Curve is a type of line. Line is a very powerful one-dimensional geometric figure that can form shapes and masses. Sketching, in my opinion, is the most important skill for architects. My passion for sketching is so intense that I almost use 50% of the Hopia paper in the admin. And nowadays, I rarely see people sketching anymore. And maybe one of the reasons why we're stuck with the same design and design methodology. Also the reason why we have restrictions, because we tend to jump early in our 3D softwares. Anyone can sketch, obviously. This is not a drawing competition. You don't have to be really good in sketching, because the purpose of your sketch is to communicate. It is an immediate access from your brain to your hand to store your ideas in a piece of paper. And your sketch does not have to please anyone. Now we go way back on how I started with my design process. This is a very old sketch of mine showing the intentions of how I wanted my thesis to look like. It is a morphological and metaphorical representation of a fish movement or fish locomotion. Sketch as an immediate tool for creativity. I have a method of sketching all of my ideas first before selecting the best one. I use pencil here because I'm afraid to commit mistakes. Obviously, you can see it here. But throughout my career here in the office, using a pen makes more sense to track your design process. Here are my old sketches where I find the best form for my building regarding fish locomotion and how it will make sense from the floor plans to its facade. Then here's my final sketch in 2012 before jumping into 3D modeling software. And here's the final product of my thesis. It was okay. Mistakes are progress. I intentionally type it wrong to be more cohesive randomly. Obviously, mistakes will make you better. So don't be afraid to sketch. Don't be afraid to sketch the wrong thing. Using pen as an archive tool. I'm not discouraging you to use pencil. But in my experience, pen did a great job in tracking my design process, and it drove me better to have more confidence in each line that I draw, and in design in general. You will see your progress through your pen. Under pressure. We're done with sketching, and here comes the pressure. Why thrive under pressure? Because as architects, we constantly face deadlines that push your creativity to new heights. We always have deadlines. These time constraints serve as catalysts, igniting our creative energy and propelling us to deliver our best work. So if you know this song featuring Bowie, that's why it's under, and pressure, under pressure, okay. 3 concept packages in 2 weeks. This can be done, and I know a lot of teams here can do this as well. But we as architects are used to working under pressure. But they're all nothing compared to what we've experienced for the past few weeks in my team. So here, I'm going to show you how we survive it without sacrificing the design quality of your work. So the 2 concept packages are combined because we needed to submit at least 2 schemes with totally different concepts, floor plans and forms. This project is the ZFDI Towers in Makati. The site is bounded by 8 tall buildings ranging from 17 to 60 stories. So the views here are really crucial, especially the units with blockages. That's why we thought of making a certain block and cuts. That's why we allow more views instead of just one. That's the pros and cons of those cuts. Then we initially obtained the precise mass of the building to assess its scale in relation to the surrounding of tall buildings. This provided us with visual analysis of the desired appearance of our building and some interactions between the masses and blocks and the tension between those spaces. This is an example of nesting and grid. It's all started with the line. Since there are obstructions of views of some parts, we focus ourselves in making those affected units, yung may mga blocks, in making those affected units with bigger and unique cuts for more views. A method called a system of architectural ornament, if you know Louis Sullivan, was really helpful on how we designed this skyscraper. Here's our version of addition and nesting, where we added more form that nested in a curved manner. I'm pretty sure most of you guys do this as well, but you're not aware that you're doing like this. You're doing it like this, similar to this. Here's another option of extension with inverted nesting, where the form tends to go inward to create bigger balconies. Nesting is more of like extending and inserting or offsetting or insetting a certain plan that connects everything all together without having a straight mass. This one is a combination of extension, penetration, and nesting. The extended big chunk of units goes inward, that goes out of the geometry. Then another example of extension and penetration, as simple as this, can make an iconic structure. Then I got so mad because I can't think of anything. Then I drew all the options that I think that can be applied. Then this is an example of nesting and extension. This one is pure nesting that extends inward and outward as it goes up, depending on the needed views per unit. So you can see how powerful the sketches are. The evolution is very simple. We started by creating a vertical mass of 100,000 square meter construction floor area. Because if you don't know your programs, you don't know what to sketch. So you need to get your programs first before sketching. Then we distributed these programs on each floor. We did cuts, then the additive and subtractive form based on different spaces, then the subtractive sky garden on top, and finally the extension and inverted nesting. So basically, it's a combination of all those ideas together. The output looks something like this. There's an intertwining of vertical and horizontal elements to achieve a slimmer look and articulation. And for the other options, we used to do this sketch for the old Lesaison project. This is what William's been mentioning from his previous talk. This is the third version now. Some studies on what it will look like on the side. Then it looks something like this. This was the approved scheme between the two schemes. And I've been more than happy to accept it because we've been pushing with this design for the third time. Here's the comparison of the two options. This comparison highlights the stark contrast between two designs, and one characterized by edgy elements and the other featuring curved elements. Next project is the Cabana house. Well, after that deadline, we immediately jumped to a different project because originally we had 3 weeks of this project, but now we only have 48 hours to do this project because we submitted 2 concept packages. And before I start, I would like to thank Pauline, I'd like to thank Jasa and Clara for helping me under 24 hours. Thank you guys for staying with me. The site is in Cabana, Zambales. It is a 20-minute drive away from the city, but obviously it's 4 hours going there. It is bounded by a mountain range. It's pretty safe from the mountain of, the Mount Pinatubo. Because during the eruption in 1991, the site is safe because of the mountain range around the site. So basically, the client wants to have an off-grid house or net zero house. This is me and my team and the clients. What's so impressive about it? Standing on because they have 20 hectares of lot, and they only want to build like 300 to 400 square meter gross floor area. Just a quick group photo before we get ready. I asked them why stay here. He said, why not? Then I approached him. Then, you want to go to the site? Okay, let's go to the site. Then he approached me, not me. It's kind of creepy. Then when I saw the site, I understood why. The site is amazing. A little bit hot, but not super. I think the site is very windy. No, it's not what I think. It's those are facts. It's very windy. The view is superb. It's way too perfect for the house. Then we went there to see the site for ourselves. That's some. To fully appreciate the magnificent site, we observe an interesting aspect regarding the wind patterns. The wind on the site tends to originate from various directions because of the mountain range. During, during our discussion, right? I have to post that way. During our discussion for the house, we identified the favorable location because the client asked me where to build the house. So I say, maybe on this side. I'm now recommending to the client that the house can be constructed on this area. We had 2 weeks before the deadline, but me and William went to Malaysia for a talk in tailors. Then my team submitted this design, which the client approved, apparently. It was okay, but it lacks in design context. I was so mad that time, but they approved it. But I seek improvement rather than difficulty in my pursuit, as I'm unsatisfied with the output. I don't want to proceed with that kind of design. So, in short, I just want to redesign everything all over again under 36 hours. Because I want to make things right for myself, for my team, for this office, rather than submitting what's available. And maybe some of you guys do this, like we go to the office, submit what's available. From 9 to 6, you go out, you just submit without really pushing and delve deep into your architectural design. So when I came back, we had the meeting. Now we have less than 36 hours to submit the final output. We're stressing ourselves to sketch a lot. We started sketching spatial tensions of each spaces, all the ideas coming, flowing. Also, I want to add some slanted elements to suppress strong winds at the front. And this is an example of linear to clustered form. We want the spaces to spread out since they have 20 hectares of lot, so why not make use of it? And by doing so, we can create more views in each room, plus the cross vent, which is really superb. This clustered form is effective with this type of topography. Now the formation or the evolution of our design process, we started by the required program of the mass, of course. We need to get the mass force or the programs. Then we exploded it strategically to form some sort of semi-private hierarchy of spaces. Then we placed the sunken link or connectivity at the center. Then the common spaces that merged together, semi and semi-private spaces, semi-private and private spaces. Then the required raised garden. Because they don't want any solar panels on their roofs, they all want greens. Here's a geometric, I don't know how to read this, derivation. Let's go. Here's a geometric derivation diagram or floor plan from defining the space. This diagram of the house where we figured out how to explode the plan that we want to maximize all views of each room. Because when you have exploded rooms, everyone will have their own view. The hatch part, as you can see, is a sunken hallway that connects all the rooms together. And it ended up like this. These exploded rooms are linked by common spaces. The pool and fire pit. There's also an additional linear link, which is the hallway that is half submerged. So when you walk, the topography is on this side. Having finalized our plans, the challenges actually revolves around on how we want to make the form to have more natural ventilation. Then here's the surface articulation and dimensional transformation. We made some facade articulation to create small gaps in between. So as you can see, the slanted vertical element to allow the wind to pass through smoothly rather than totally rejecting it. So here's a short analysis on how we want to divert the wind going inside. See, the power of sketching, even though it doesn't look nice, it stores in your brain on how it will flow. So, and using a pen makes everything cohesive if you can archive everything. Then it needs to be stocked at the courtyard before going up. I really can't think any form back then, so I felt like I was forcing myself to do a lot of stuff. I'm kind of pressuring myself to do something unique, which is not bad actually. But one thing I noticed is that I've been sketching a lot of rectangular funnel form, and the ink of my pen went out, as you can see here. But then the creativity started to kick in when I started to open a new pen. So I remembered when I was a kid, I used to wonder why, when you when you exhale in your hand, it's warm, and when you blow, it's cool. Try it for yourselves, right? And I was wondering, maybe we can exaggerate this kind of element, or the Ventura effect, through our roofing design. And this is quite proven, and they've been using this kind of design in the different parts of Asia, Southeast Asia, especially in hot climates. This one is in Bangladesh and in India. The form articulation of two opposites. So what we did, we kind of wanted to have a specific form with two sides. Well, a form has two sides, four sides, definitely. But we want to articulate those forms. This is the funnel sketch that we did, and we developed it when we transferred everything in 3D. The eaves will have two forms since the wind comes from random direction. Through this, we can accommodate as much air as we need to have enhanced ventilation. So that's an illustration of how the hot air will go inside. And the final output looks something like this. And when the clients saw this image, they were genuinely happy, especially the wife. At this point, I knew to myself that even though we rushed this project, we still managed to deliver the right output to our design. And just a quick sketch on how I want the air to flow inside of the house. The diagram shows how the air will flow in and out regardless of the wind direction. The courtyard at the center, as you can see here, with the pool cools the air as it passes through. Then the longer eaves, they will help the wind to go flow in again of the roofing. Basically, it's not an arbitrary placement of form. It's more of like a reasoning of how it was formed. Then the clients wants to have green roofing instead of solar roofs. So because we can place those solar panels outside within the 20 hectares of lot. We also have 2-meter wide eaves on both sides for sun shading and 1-meter depth for the roofing. Then there's a lot of river rocks. The site, this is very adjacent to the site, like 1 minute walk, around 2-minute walk. And we can use these stones as gabion walls for the house. It will also serve as retaining wall for the house. Also, gabion walls are not made of concrete. There's no negative environmental impact. And for the facade, we covered the entrance with vegetable vertical planters, which the client really loved. This filters the strong wind coming from the facade. Then later on, I'll show you some techniques on how to make. No, I think I didn't include the art viz because I want to eat. Practice. My takeaway from this project is that sketching really is very important. The lot or how you lay all your ideas first before focusing on one concept, because practicing or archiving your choices can be the first option. So don't throw everything away. So even your first concept can be used. If you're used to this kind of methodology, I'm sure everything will follow. Here's a non-periodic lattice. It's a project in Horizon Manila, phase 1. Here's an additional example of the project. This church is inside the yellow district. So the first step that we did is to identify the site context. Through this, we can place what proper activities can be used by various typologies. Then we place the paths, the links, to connect everything. Then the triangular form of the church based on the form space from the links. So it's the chapel or the church is formed within the negative spaces of those links. And it looks something like this. The intertwining, overlapping connections of various spaces to create a church from the line-based geometry. This approach often emphasizes the visual impact of the lines themselves, obviously, as well as the relationships and negative spaces that they create. And those negative spaces are translated into mini sculptures and street furniture. Symbolism and spiritual significance. The triangle is actually a very powerful geometric shape with deep symbolic representation and spiritual significance. In many cultures and religion, it represents unity, balance, and harmony. In Christian symbolism, the triangle can be associated with the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I think it's a fitting choice for a church design. Then, when I'm conceptualizing how the opening will look like, as you can see here, the blue ones are the openings of the church. I'm thinking about making a material that contrasts between light and dark, between stone, which are monotonous, and the actual finish, the curtain. As they enter, they will be greeted by this profound texture that no matter how you age, it's like a metaphorical symbolism or saying, like you're always welcome, and you're always welcome in the house of our Lord. So that's why we chose the curtain material. You guys are familiar with the curtain material, right? The resulting forms can vary from simple geometric shapes to more complex and intricate compositions. The overlapping lines can create a dynamic and visual engaging patterns, adding a sense of movement and energy to the overall design. But these openings can also be depicted as chaos. So I think William disapproved with that kind of concept because it's too morbid. So someone can be miserable without faith and guide. So that's the curtain and how the form is shaped. All I wanted here is to create a contrast between the chaotic and peaceful form and materiality. On the top, there is also a walkable path going to the cross, which is manifested by the journey of Christ in earth. Here's an example of a metaphorical narrative. The openings are represented by the number of books in New Testament and Old Testament by translating these chapters of book into window designs. You can create a visual representation of the story or convey a specific moment or ideas. So each chapter is represented by 100 millimeter opening height dimension. If you multiply those chapters, you'll get the entire book. So that's the vertical opening sense of this structure. So here's the aerial perspective of the church together with the phase 1 of the Horizon Manila. You can see how the landscape and hardscape coexist together with the building hierarchy. And here's the design process in which the sketch is to subtract the triangular form and scatter it over the negative spaces. This is an overlap line as fragmental art sculpture that look like it's taken out from that shape and something like this. The red concrete finish leads the users towards the center of the church. It also acts as a visual link to the other side. I made the bell tower black to at least contrast the building without totally getting the attention out from the main structure. Here's the design process of the interior, where I want the opening to have vertical louvers to allow natural light inside. And For the interior of the church, I just want to have a subtle and intimate feel and experience. So this is a juxtaposition of New and Old Testament, as you can see the opening of those windows, together with the heavy contrast of the curtain walls. This view shows the connection of the roofing to the landscape, while the intersecting lines are used as linear hardscape and pathways. Um, Here's a short walkthrough of what I did during the pandemic. See the merging and the connection of those links. It's very subtle, it's very minimal, but the feelings are profound, kind of emotional somehow. This is the pathway, the roof. Then the very tight space going inside. So you can see the minimal, the very narrow space is represented by the hardships of Christ. So that's why it's very crowded. You feel like very intimidated by those space. Sketching is the language of architect's imagination, where lines flow freely, ideas take shapes, and perfection emerges through practice. So sketching is a very helpful tool to improve your design. You'll so get used to it that you'll be able to produce an architecture that is beyond the surface level with everlasting impact. So here's the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So that's a line. Everything started with a line, right? This is the BSP project competition, a project that I'm really proud of. The site is located in New Clark City. I'm hungry. It all started with a line. Basically, the curve is a type of line, right? And the BSP initial sketch is where we still argue with each other. So this is the time when me and William doesn't want to agree with our design. It's because he wants a linear form, a more edgy form. So why not meet in between, right? So we ended up doing it like this: depressed base plane. He wants to have a mountain-like structure covered with trees. So we thought maybe we can house some birds to create its own biodiversity. Through this sketch, we managed to imagine the form without doing 3D model first. So here's the section. Through sketching, we took the advantage of the security and make it natural barrier. We managed to design passive barriers with a mixture of natural and man-made elements from trees, hedge with bollards, and another berm before going to the wet moat. We plan to make use of this moat as a natural basin during the rainy season. At the same time, this will be used to feed the whole green system of the facility. Here's what we envisioned into the future of BSP. It's very profound in terms of living facade. It's very literal. It is full of life because we want the building to serve as a sanctuary for biodiversity. And I'm very proud of this project because we worked throughout the holiday with a very limited time. The core team were like 5 people working in this massive project. And in memory of this project, I applied the small version of this in the Cabana house, right? If you remember that house. So this project is under the Guangzhou competition. I really like it because it's also a combination of grid and nesting, where I want the masses to float. So that everyone can have a visual link from the ground. This is a common example of how to articulate your form. Then here's the final output. This is the tourist district in Guangzhou. It's a competition we did. As you can see, the floating masses allows the people to have shading under an open park and a museum. So underneath, it's a combination of open space, visual link, and a museum. The East Grid project, the Power Sector Asset and Liabilities Management Corporation. This is an invitational design competition we did together with the government. This will be the power sector's new office in Cabana. So we won this project and we made it in less than 3 weeks. So lots of sleepless nights, obviously. But then the pandemic happened, and then the budget, and it happened. So here's a sketch of interlocking and proportioning system. We started by getting the required space massing so that we have an idea of what to sketch. There are 2 heritage structures made by Leandro Locsin, and we copied the size and shape of it. We scattered it along the middle and the top floor to have sense of scale, as you can see here in the sketch. So here's an example of additive and subtractive. And this one is a good example of evolved nesting and plane articulation because the internal spaces tends to go outward, but I think this looks is not suitable for the project. Sometimes it's nice to imagine blob architecture because it might give you some ideas in the future. So this is the site along Cazenau. These are the buildings of Leandro Locsin. So the main challenge is to build something that will complement the heritage buildings. Then we took that exact form and then replicate it together with the towers 1 and 2. But we want those towers to be seamless. Same application with towers 3 and 4, then 5 and 6. With the interlocking mass in higher position. Through this, we can achieve a gradual hierarchy of architecture without destroying the sense of scale of the people. Here's the final output that we did for the project with 6 penetrating elements, interlocks with the towers. And these elements are consisted of commercial and amenities that serves the structure. Then again, sketching really helped us to achieve something unconventional. Right there from the first line where we sketch everything, we already understood the goal. To get the scale of the old building and distribute it as a sign of respect for Locsin's work and sense of scale and proportion. This is the internal courtyard showing each surface articulation. As you can see the surface articulation of each side and building so that there's a gradual lift or change of space. Here's the scale model. Very Matt, let's go. Here's the final scale model of the site. Here's the courtyard where all the textures meet. And here's the fenestration with applied surface articulation and methodology. And of course, the Horizon Manila project. This is our final sketch of the master plan. And we asked William to sign it so that we don't have to change it further. But then he wants to revise something. We went all over again the place. It's a nice project because we started with the line and a line that links every island. I think these are the slides that I wasn't able to finish because, and I've deleted it earlier because I want to eat early. And these are the people behind the Horizon Manila. That's 10 pounds ago. So yeah, that's how we applied sketching with all of our projects. And it all started with a line, obviously. And I do hope you learned a lot from this experience and this presentation. If you have a hard time, start with a line. If you can't think of anything, start with a line. True passion is not stumbled upon, but rather nurtured intentionally. Keep improving, keep practicing, and keep on sketching. The phrase nurtured intentionally emphasizes the deliberate and powerful nature of cultivating a passion. It implies that one must invest time and energy and commitment to develop and grow your passion. It suggests that passion requires continuous care, exploration, and dedication to fully flourish. So before I end my talk, I would like to ask you something. What is your life? What is your purpose? In the pursuit of your architectural aspirations, what is the driving force that propels you to move every day? Why are you here in this office? Do you like working 9 to 6? Before going out, do you just submit your work just because there's a deadline? Or are you drawn to this office because you genuinely love what you do? That's my question for you. So I challenge you, fellow designers and architects, to delve deep into your passion, find your purpose, and hold it close to your heart. And always remember that everything started with a love. Thank you so much.